February 21st, 2026, 11:42 local time, Gulf of Oman, 78 nautical miles southeast of Jask, Iran. The USS Philippine Sea, a Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser, is conducting air defense coordination for a carrier strike group transit. She's the shield, the eyes, the first line of defense against anything that threatens the carrier. At 11:42:07, she becomes the target. Not one missile, not two, eight Noor anti-ship cruise missiles launched simultaneously from concealed positions along the Iranian coast. A coordinated salvo designed to overwhelm even the most advanced American warship. The Philippine Sea has 31 seconds to stop them all. Welcome to War Signal USA. I'm your host, and this is the story of how Iran launched its most sophisticated attack on an American warship, and how the U.S. Navy's response began just 24 minutes later. Let's understand what made this attack different. Previous Iranian strikes on American vessels had been single missile engagements. One weapon, one target, one chance. The Gravely incident, the Porter strike. Each was dangerous, but each gave defenders a fighting chance. The March 4th attack was something else entirely. Iran had learned from those earlier engagements. They had studied American defensive capabilities, and they had developed a new doctrine: saturate the defenses. Fire more missiles than the target can stop. By early March 2027, the Persian Gulf crisis had entered its most dangerous phase. The previous month's incidents, the Porter attack, retaliatory strikes on Iranian coastal batteries, increasingly aggressive fast boat encounters, had created a spiral of escalation that seemed impossible to break. Both sides were exhausted. Both sides were angry. Neither side was willing to back down. The trigger for the March 4th attack was an American airstrike 3 days earlier. A Revolutionary Guard command post in southern Iran had been destroyed after intelligence linked it to planning for attacks on commercial shipping. 23 Iranian military personnel were killed. Iran called it an act of war. The supreme leader promised rivers of American blood in response. Revolutionary Guard commanders were given expanded authority to engage American forces at their discretion. The USS Philippine Sea was operating as the air defense coordinator for the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group. Her position, 78 nautical miles from the Iranian coast, put her at the outer edge of Noor missile range, close enough to provide radar coverage of the strait. Far enough, theoretically, to have reaction time against threats. That calculation assumed single missile attacks. At 11:41:22, the Philippine Sea's electronic warfare suite detected unusual activity from the Iranian coast. Multiple radar emissions, different frequencies, different bearings. The electronic warfare officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Park, recognized the pattern immediately. It wasn't one battery preparing to fire. It was several. She had 45 seconds to raise the alarm. "Captain, I'm seeing coordinated fire control radar activity from multiple sites. Bearings 310, 324, 337, and 351. This looks like a coordinated strike preparation." Captain William Morrison was on the bridge when the report came in. He understood the implications instantly. Multiple launch sites meant multiple missiles. Multiple missiles meant saturation attack. Sound general quarters. All stations stand by for coordinated missile defense. Alert the strike group. General quarters sounded at 11:41:47. The crew of 387 began racing to battle stations. They had 20 seconds before the first missiles launched. At 11:42:07, Iran fired. 8 Noor anti-ship cruise missiles erupted from 4 separate coastal batteries, 2 missiles per battery, launched 4 seconds apart. The missiles climbed briefly, then descended to sea-skimming altitude, 5 to 7 meters above the water. Speed, Mach 0.9, range to target, 74 nautical miles. Flight time, approximately 4 minutes and 40 seconds. The Philippine Sea's AN/SPY-1B radar detected the launches at 11:42:19. 8 contacts, 8 vampires, all inbound. The Combat Information Center erupted into controlled chaos. Multiple vampires, bearing 310 through 351. Count 8, range 72 nautical miles, closing. Captain Morrison was in the CIC within 30 seconds. What he saw on the tactical display confirmed his worst fears. 8 missiles spread across a 41-degree arc. They weren't clustered, they were dispersed, designed to approach from different angles simultaneously. Even if the Philippine Sea destroyed 7, the 8th could get through. The math was brutal. The ship's SM-2 magazines held 68 missiles. Standard doctrine called for 2 interceptors per target. That meant 16 SM-2s for 8 incoming Noors. In a salvo engagement, you don't get second chances. Weapons free, engage all inbound vampires. SM-2 battery, ripple fire. At 11:43:31, the Philippine Sea began her defense. SM-2 missiles erupted from the forward and aft vertical launch systems in rapid succession. 2 missiles per target, as doctrine demanded. The first intercept occurred at 11:44:47. An SM-2 struck the lead Noor 34 nautical miles from the ship. The Iranian missile exploded in a ball of fire and debris. 4 seconds later, a second intercept, then a third. But the fourth engagement failed. The SM-2's proximity fuse triggered too early, 23 meters from the target instead of the optimal 5. The warhead detonated, but the Noor flew through the fragment cloud with only minor damage. Its guidance system was still functional. Its warhead was still intact. At 11:45:02, 6 Noors had been destroyed. 2 were still inbound. The Philippine Sea's second line of defense was the RIM-116 rolling airframe missile, a short-range system designed for exactly this scenario. The ship carried 21 rams and a launcher on the port side. At 11:45:18, the ram system engaged. 2 missiles launched against each remaining Noor. The first ram intercept was perfect. The Noor disintegrated 8,000 meters from the ship. The second engagement was not. Both rams missed. The Noor executed a terminal maneuver, a sudden climb and dive that threw off the infrared seekers. The missiles passed behind the target and self-destructed. 1 Noor was still inbound. Range, 3,400 meters. Time to impact, 14 seconds. The Phalanx close-in weapon system was the last line of defense. The 20mm Gatling gun began tracking the incoming missile at 11:45:29. At 11:45:33, the Phalanx opened fire. The gun spat 75 rounds per second, a stream of tungsten penetrators designed to shred incoming missiles. The Noor was 1,100 meters out when the first round struck. The missile's nose section disintegrated. Its guidance was destroyed. But the missile body, still carrying a 165-kilogram warhead and traveling at Mach 0.85, continued on a ballistic trajectory. No longer guided, no longer precise, still lethal. At 11:45:37, the Noor's remains struck the Philippine Sea's forward superstructure. The warhead detonated on impact. The explosion was devastating. The bridge windows, reinforced glass designed to withstand 12-gauge shotgun blasts, shattered inward. The forward mast, carrying the ship's primary communications antennas, was severed at its base and toppled over the port side. The forward SPY-1B radar array was knocked offline by the concussion. 11 sailors were killed instantly. The captain was among them. Captain William Morrison had been standing at the forward windows of the bridge when the missile hit. He was 52 years old, 28 years in the Navy, 3 combat deployments, married with 2 children. He never saw the missile that killed him. Command of the Philippine Sea passed instantly to the executive officer, Commander Robert Okonkwo. He was in the Combat Information Center when the impact occurred, protected from the blast by 3 decks of steel. Okonkwo had 90 seconds to assess the situation before the next crisis hit. The damage was severe. The bridge was destroyed. The captain was dead. 11 other sailors were killed or missing. Forward radar offline. Primary communications were down. But the ship was still floating. Her weapons were still functional. Her propulsion was intact. And 74 nautical miles away, Iranian coastal batteries might be reloading. Okonkwo made 3 immediate decisions. First, damage control. Stop the fires, save the wounded, stabilize the ship. Second, communications. Get word to the strike group using backup systems. The carrier needed to know what had happened. Third, offense. Identify the launch sites and prepare a counterstrike. The damage control response was already underway. Fire teams were attacking the blazes on the forward superstructure. Medical personnel were treating the wounded. Rescue teams were searching for survivors in the demolished bridge. Communications were harder. The primary satellite antenna had been destroyed with the mast. The backup antenna, mounted lower on the superstructure, had survived, but was partially blocked by debris from the collapse. At 11:48, Communications Officer Lieutenant Jennifer Walsh jury-rigged a connection through the backup system. Signal quality was poor, but it worked. Okonkwo's first message to the strike group was brief. Philippine Sea hit. Captain killed. Heavy damage. Maintain defensive posture. More to follow. The third decision, the counterstrike. was the most complicated. The Philippine Sea's weapon systems were intact. Her Tomahawk magazines held 26 cruise missiles. She could strike the Iranian batteries that had attacked her. But should she? The ship had just lost her captain. Her bridge was destroyed. Her crew was dealing with mass casualties. Was launching an offensive strike the right call, or a dangerous distraction? Okonkwo considered the question for approximately 15 seconds. Then he gave the order. Weapons. Target all 4 launch sites that engaged us. Load Tomahawk strike packages. 12 missiles, 3 per site. Fire when ready. His reasoning was simple. The Iranian batteries had demonstrated hostile intent. They had killed American sailors. They might fire again at any moment. Destroying them was not revenge. It was defense. At 12:06:14, exactly 24 minutes after the Iranian missiles launched, the Philippine Sea began her counterattack. 12-Tomahawk Block 4 cruise missiles emerged from the aft vertical launch system over 67 seconds. 3 missiles per target site. Different approach vectors. Maximum destruction. Flight time to the nearest target, 8 minutes. While the Tomahawks flew, the Philippine Sea's damage control efforts continued. The fires were brought under control by 12:15. The debris blocking the backup antenna was cleared by 12:22. Wounded sailors were being evacuated by helicopter to the carrier by 12:30. But the death toll kept climbing. The initial count of 11 killed proved optimistic. 3 more sailors died of their wounds before reaching the carrier's medical facilities. 2 were missing, their bodies later found in the wreckage of the bridge. Final casualty count, 16 dead, 23 wounded. The highest single engagement losses for a U.S. Navy surface combatant since World War II. At 12:14, the first Tomahawks reached their targets. The Iranian coastal batteries had not relocated after their attack. Intelligence later suggested they were preparing to reload, confident that their 8-missile salvo had destroyed the American cruiser. They were wrong about the cruiser, and they were wrong about having time. The first battery, located on a peninsula near Jask, was struck by 3 Tomahawks in rapid succession. The missiles approached from the sea, land, and directly overhead, making defense impossible. The launchers, radar vehicles, and command post were obliterated. The second battery took its hits 47 seconds later, then the third, then the fourth. By 12:19, all 4 Iranian coastal defense batteries that had participated in the attack on the Philippine Sea had been destroyed. Iranian casualties were estimated at 74 military personnel killed. But the American response didn't stop there. At 12:31, 16 FA-18E Super Hornets launched from the Gerald R. Ford. Their target, the Revolutionary Guard command post that had coordinated the attack. At 12:58, the strike package delivered 32 precision-guided munitions on the facility. The command post, a hardened bunker complex 40 kilometers inland, was destroyed. Additional Iranian casualties, an estimated 45 military personnel. Total Iranian losses from the engagement, approximately 119 killed. The response was overwhelming, disproportionate by some measures, but it delivered a clear message. Attack an American warship, and the cost will be catastrophic. The Philippine Sea limped into Bahrain 4 days later under her own power. Her forward superstructure was a blackened ruin. Her mast was gone. Her bridge was demolished. 16 body bags were in her morgue. Captain William Morrison, 52 years old, graduate of the Naval Academy, class of 1997. Lieutenant Commander James Chen, 38 years old, operations officer. He was on the bridge coordinating the defensive engagement when the missile hit. Lieutenant Sarah Park, 34 years old, electronic warfare officer. She had raised the alarm that saved the ship. She died trying to reach the backup antenna. Ensign Michael Torres, 24 years old, officer of the deck. His first combat watch lasted 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Quartermaster First Class David Washington, 44 years old, 22 years in the Navy. He was at the helm when the bridge exploded. Operations Specialist Second Class Maria Gonzalez, 27 years old. She was tracking the incoming missiles on her console when she died. Fire Controlman Second Class Robert Kim, 26 years old. He was manning the Phalanx control station. The system worked perfectly. He still didn't survive. And 9 more. 9 more names. 9 more families shattered. 16 Americans who woke up on March 4th, 2027, expecting another day at sea. They didn't come home. The incident marked a turning point in the Persian Gulf crisis. The scale of the Iranian attack and the scale of the American response shocked both sides into recognizing how close they had come to full-scale war. Within 2 weeks, back-channel negotiations had produced a tentative ceasefire. Both sides agreed to reduce provocations. American ships would maintain greater standoff distances from the Iranian coast. Iran would stop targeting U.S. vessels transiting international waters. The agreement was fragile, informal, easily broken, but it held for a while. The Philippine Sea underwent extensive repairs at the Huntington Ingalls shipyard in Pascagoula, Mississippi. The reconstruction took 19 months. New bridge, new mast, new forward superstructure, upgraded radar and communication systems. She returned to active duty in October 2028. Commander Robert Okonkwo, now Captain Okonkwo, was named her new commanding officer. He had saved the ship once. The Navy trusted him to lead her again. What lessons emerged from the Philippine Sea engagement? First, saturation attacks can overwhelm even the best defenses. The ship stopped 7 of 8 missiles, an 87.5% success rate.